Hi there. My name is Kevin Smith, and I'm the head coach, president, and chief executive running officer of a company here in Toronto called Marathon Dynamics, that for 20 years has been helping runners improve by bringing out the best in them, in mind, in body, and in spirit. In today's installment of 7 Habits of Highly Effective Dynamo Runners, we wanted to talk to you about a fairly cute little term that we've coined, the running repechage. Now, if you're not a rower or a fencer, that may be an unfamiliar term. If you do either of those, that's old hat. You know what that's all about. The term repechage, for those uninitiated, I think it's a French origin. It basically, loosely translated, would be to fish up again. Pêche, fish, so to re-fish, to try again. And I've named it that because, well, without knowing it or before I named it that, I'd been doing this kind of thing all my life. With all the running injury history I had, I turned to cross-training, and I used cross-training religiously to keep what I had, to hold on to the fitness that I had while I waited out or worked on proactively to repair an injury. In other words, I tried to use cross-training to make it a ratchet in terms of so I didn't advance my game piece down the board too with training and then get hurt and lose back 2 spaces. I would stay where I was, or maybe lose 1 if it was a really long injury, but I was always kind of ratcheting upwards, being very resistant to losing fitness through cross-training, okay? The term itself I coined because 2012 Olympics was the London Olympics, the Canadian rowing team, repechage, they were the defending Olympic champions, the men's 8. And so they in China, in Beijing, they were the gold medalists. Coming back, they were kind of favored or heavily suspected to be in the medals, if not the gold medalists. And in their first race, they finished dead last. I don't even remember, maybe they caught a crab, or it's a rowing term for your oar getting stuck in the water. But they didn't perform very well as a team, and they were dead last. In most sports, what does that mean? Bye-bye, it's over. Another 4 years later, you get another shot. But in rowing and fencing and a couple of other sports, they have this competitive dynamic, the way the sport is set up, so that if you lose your first round or match, you go into like the B heat, and you get to compete again. And if you start winning, and if you keep winning in that second tier, if you will, you're invited back into the A tier, the main event, later in the competition. It's a neat little thing, and it basically is a way of ensuring that everyone gets a second chance to prove their mettle. Okay, and that's why it struck me that the repechage was a good way to determine or to describe not giving up on a running season or on your running dreams when you get struck down, finding a creative way to stay in the game and keep fit and give yourself a shot, not only at, like some people say, oh, well, you get hurt, or adjust your goals, move from a marathon to a half, move from a half to a 10K, move it later, don't do the big one you were planning, do some other event because you've been injured, or throw the towel in on that season and wait till next season and try again, right? Those are all good recommendations, those are all good approaches, but this gives you a chance to still stay in the game, to go after the original goal you had set, which I think it doesn't mean it'll happen for sure, but it's enticing. It's nice to know that there may be another way to get to the same place I hope to be in the first place. Okay, so that's what that's about, a second chance of reaching your original goal. Okay, and the whole strategy depends on forethought and planning and being proactive, because if you wait, and anybody who's done this can echo, you tell me if it's any different or if I'm wrong, but if you wait until you're hurt to then think, oh my God, I'm now told I have 6 weeks off or 8 weeks off because of a stress fracture or what have you, whatever the injury is, if you're told then that you can't run, what kind of a mindset and attitude and headspace are you in to go and invest in a whole new fitness activity and get embracing it so you're actually training with it? Not a good one, I would suspect, correct? So you're in a low point. You're not ready to embrace and learn and a whole new activity. So you have to do this while you're healthy. while you're still in the running game, you've got to establish your repechage. You have to establish your other activities and keep them hot, keep them practiced, keep them close at hand, if you will. That's how you'll ensure you have the proficiency, the motivation to do it when and if, or I'll say if rather than when, you actually get hurt. Okay? And the other is, some people make the mistake of saying, oh, I have a cross training, I cycle if I get hurt, or I have the elliptical, or what have you, or I swim. That's good, but not great, because some injuries stop you from running, but then they also say, guess what? Nope, you can't do any weight-bearing activity, or you can't do that motion because it's very hip-centric and you have bursitis or you have a hip issue, something that stops you there. So your go-to may be taken away. So you need to have 3 or 4 different options, okay? At least 3 or 4 for variety as well, that helps, but also for function, to move them around. And the little shopping list to make sure you're really covered your bases, I like to say or use, is make sure that you have at least 1 or 2 of these activities that are running similar, and I'm going to back that up with a quick visual in a second to show you what I mean. 1 or 2 that are running contrast, very different from running. 1 or 2, and they can be overlapping. They don't have to be all the, hey, this can be this can be that. But they just have to satisfy whatever they are. They have to satisfy these criteria. 1 or 2 that are low to no weight bearing or impact. And finally, 1 or 2 that are moderate impact. Have some, not like running, but they are weight bearing. It could be elliptical, for example, that kind of thing. Or there could be some impact, but not much. If you answer yes to all of those, you are ready to repechage. It's almost like nothing can knock you off your plan, okay? It would take a lot. It would take a lot. And that's how I live my running life a lot of times, is I'll cross-train around it. I have more than 4 different options. And I don't even do triathlon, so that tells you how many different pots I have that I'm cooking at once, you could say, to be a repechager. So I did want to quickly allude to, I don't know if anybody can see this, I didn't have much of a chance to blow it up, but it's, and we won't go over it all, but I talked about running similar, so I wanted you to get a sense of what that means. Basically, there's 2 criteria that you can compare any any activity, not even aerobic, any fitness activity to running on, for our purposes. One is aerobic conditioning. Does it get the heart rate up, keep the heart rate up, kind of like running? That's one key aspect. The other is muscle specificity, engagement, involvement. Does it use the same muscles that running does, the same way that running does? Okay? So those are 2 very important criteria to consider when you ask yourself, what kind of cross-training activity is this? How does it relate to running? And in doing so, in considering certain activities, and we give you some quick idea at the bottom, we kind of put them on the graph, if you will, you end up with 3 categories that pretty much every cross-training activity will fall into. A running similar one, which means no matter how intense, no matter what level or effort or intensity you do it at, it's like running. It kind of counts like running, okay? So that's a very rich, good one to have 1 or 2 of those in, running similar activities for sure. And then I'll flip to the last one. Then there's running contrast activities, which again mean no matter how hard or easy you do them, they're not like running. There is a place and a time, and they have a purpose, those activities, but they don't build they don't hold or build running fitness and ability like running similar activities. Okay, so you have running similar, running contrast, and then you have balanced activities, which are probably the most flexible, which are similar enough on these elements that if you do them hard, they're like running. Intensely focused, on point. If you do them relaxed and easy, they're more contrast. Okay? So just a very quick plot line, if you will, throw them out there, see where they stick, to give you some idea, and then after you have those ideas, you can probably think of other ones and go, that's like this, so you can figure intuitively where it should fit. Activities that are really running similar are things like water running, which is why we, Marathon Dynamics, spend so much time trying to get people in the water so you at least have that tool, you have that arrow in your quiver, so you can pull it out and shoot at the target when you need to. Water running. Cross-country skiing is another great one, but you can see why I offer water. We talk about water running because it's very hard in Toronto to cross-country ski with any degree of regularity and not a lot of planning ahead. Okay, so but it is taken straight up. That's why the Nordic countries are so good at it, because they spend all day doing it. It's a really good one for running similar activities. So is water running. Things like spinning and cycling, stair climbing, elliptical, they are similar enough to running that when you do them focused, we'll say 75–80% or harder effort, or perceived heart rate, or perceived effort, or actual heart rate, they function. They can replace runs. And when you do them easy, not so much. They're more running contrast. And then there's activities that pretty much no matter how hard you do them, they fit over on this side of the spectrum. No matter how hard you golf, it's not going to happen, okay? You're not going to run your PB in 10K because you put a lot of golf rounds in. Not going to happen. Swimming, though it has a very good aerobic conditioning, though it takes skill to get to that level where you can do it and use it and get that benefit out of it, it turns out that most of the muscles you use when you swim are the antagonist muscle groups. They're the opposite muscle groups we use to running, so it's very hard, no matter how hard you do it, to get a big bang for your buck as a runner. There's different reasons to do it, and I'm not saying you shouldn't swim, but don't expect that will give you automatic great running fitness, okay? Because of that, the muscle specificity element is not very high. So does that help segment and segregate where activities are? Once you know what kind of activities they are, then the last element, and we'll have this material all out to you shortly, is where they fit in your plan, depending on who you are and what your circumstance is. Okay? There's really only, if you're a runner and you want to play this game, there's really only 4 categories I think you can fit in. You're either an experienced runner who's healthy, everything's a thumbs up, training well, or you're an experienced runner who's injured and dealing with stuff, or outright injured, or you're dealing with a niggle that's complicating your training. Or you're more of a novice new runner and you're healthy, everything's a thumbs up, you're training well, or you're a novice runner and you're injured. Okay? All of us probably fit in one of those categories. I can almost guarantee it. So once you're in those categories, this little sample tells you how to make use of this running repechage, the cross training. Let's say you're, just for one example, so you get a sense, let's say you're a novice runner who's healthy. Okay? You're going to run, ours are runs. You're going to run every other day here and there, maybe 3 runs a week because you're novice and new, you don't want to overdo it. So you have runs and they're spaced apart, at least a day apart. Healthy, going for it, putting your all into your runs. Because you're new, you probably don't want to double up and do running similar. It's a lot to handle until you have more experience. So we say running contrast 2 or 3 times a week is a good idea when your guns are blazing for as a runner, but you're new. Okay? So you're going to do, your cross training should be more contrast activities when you're new because the running is so intense. Make sense? And then that was a healthy, so then take an experienced runner who's injured. Okay? So where they would have had runs, take cross-training similar, running similar cross-training, and they do those exactly where they would have run. So you're in there, you're doing your OMP in the water running, or on the elliptical. You're doing an interval workout or that kind of, you can actually replace your runs with cross-training when you have used running similar activities. Okay? So they're replacing their runs on run days, and then on their other days, they have some options, okay, depending on where their headspace is. They could do contrast because of the running similar, or they might try some running cross-training similar because they're advanced, evolved, they want to keep their fitness at a high level. So you have a bit more flexibility, but the main thing is what you replace runs with. Okay? Does that make sense? And does that kind of help make some decisions for you when you're feeling like you're a mess because you're not running, or even when you're healthy, how to make the best use of your cross-training? Okay? Does that help? All right. We've covered that one. Thank you very much.